Hey guys, I'm Eddie Marquez, DVideo1 certified trainer, and today we're going to go over Pro Tools. So if today you've never seen Pro Tools before, this will be a lot of fun, and for those of you that have seen Pro Tools before and have some experience, this will be also a good refresher, but you might learn something. So let's get started. Let's start going under File, Menu, New Session. Now you'll notice as well there's an Apple N Quick Key guide next to every menu line item. Put that in your books. Try to remember that. That's also a good way to remember your quick keys. So for now, let's go File, New Session. Now under New Session window, there's a few things I want you to take a look at. The first is, where is this session going to be stored? I can see it's under the URAM media folder. I can see the other sessions that are located in that folder. And for now, we'll just save this session as a test session. So let's take a look at the session parameters below. Audio file type, we'll stick with WAV, it's universal, broadcast media format, works well with everything. Sample rate. Now let's take a few moments to talk about sample rate. Right now our default sample rate is 44.1, Redbook CD quality. When you go purchase a CD at a local mega store or wherever you buy your CDs, the CD quality comes at 44.1, and here is 16-bit. That's the standard quality. But in Pro Tools, we can record at different sample rates. This will allow us to have a higher fidelity, much like when you have a digital camera and you want to take pictures at a higher quality, you have to get a high megapixel, high resolution camera. So a 3 megapixel camera compared to a 6 megapixel camera is much different in quality. Same concept. So what people like to do, like I do, is record at higher sample rates, capture as much image of the sound as possible, and then ultimately dumb it down to 44.1 16-bit, which is Redbook standard CD quality, and allows you to put the CD into your car and play it back. So for now, we'll do 44.1. And now bit depth. Bit depth is very similar to sample rate, except bit depth deals with amplitude. So here we have two different options, 16-bit and 24-bit. Now Redbook audio, much like sample rate in 44.1, is 16-bit. But again, we can capture our audio at different parameters. So this parameter here shows 24-bit. This allows us to capture much more of a dynamic range when dealing with Pro Tools. So for this scenario, we'll use 16-bit. Under I/O settings, some of you might have an M-Box, a 003, a 002, or an HD system. So this can be configured to your likings. In this scenario, you can see we have an HD system, so we'll just use last used. But for conversation's sakes, we can use stereo mix, 5.1 film mix if you're doing a 5.1 surround mix, so on and so forth. So let's just use stereo mix for now. We'll hit save, everything looks good. And here's our new windows. So the first two things I want to go over, the edit window and the mix window. Here's our edit window. I'm going to go over to Window, Mix, and show you the mix window. Now there's no parameters to show you, but ultimately if I switch back and forth using the Apple plus key, I can switch back and forth. Now as soon as we create some tracks, you'll see the difference. So let's get started with creating tracks. The very first thing you're going to do is go to Track, New. Now again, I mentioned this earlier. You have a few quick key parameters here next to the actual parameter that you want to do. So it says Track New. I'm showing that the quick key for new track is Shift Apple N, or in this case Shift Command N. I use Apple a lot for command, it's kind of a habit. But in this case, Shift Apple N creates new tracks. We'll hit New. The New Tracks dialog appears. So a few things to look at. How many tracks do I want to create? Do I want to create 1? Do I want to create 2? Or 100? For this scenario, we'll create 2. I have a guitar player and a singer who want to record a little demo, and that's all we need. So now these 2 tracks that I create be mono or in stereo? Will I have a quad bus, or will I have a 5.1, 2 5.1 tracks? In this scenario, we'll have 2 microphones, 2 sources, thus 2 tracks. Now under the Tracks dialog window, I can see that I have aux input, master fader, VCA master, and other parameters, but for now we're going to use audio track. We'll measure it in samples. Let's hit create. Alright, so the very first thing I want to cover is creating the tracks and how to name them. So the way to name a track, I can see that the default parameter says audio 1, audio 2. This stands for basically the order at which it was created. If I create another track, the next sequential track will be audio 3. Let's name audio 1 guitar. Now sound engineers like to abbreviate, so I'll do the same. Guitar, and we'll label it 1. Maybe we might have 2 guitars or a bass guitar. Well, this will be easy for us to know which guitar we're working with. Once you've named guitar 1, let's now name the next track, vocal. Next. Okay. So let's take a look at these 2 tracks and see what we're looking at. A few parameters to take a look at. The record button. This is telling you which track is armed and ready to record. So if I had a guitar player here with a microphone ready to record into this track, I would arm this track. There's no sense in recording to the vocal track if I've named this track vocal. Now these tracks have no audio in them, as you can see. It's completely blank. It's only a guitar track if I record guitars to it. So if I want to switch the order, I can. So there's record enable. Let's de-enable record. Now on an HD system we have input only. This allows us to monitor the input of the track itself. As you can see, it turns green. The solo button. I can solo the track itself. So let's say I'm recording the guitar and vocal, and for mixing purposes or editing purpose, I want to see if the guitar is in tune, or if it's in time, or how it's relating to the vocal itself. I can solo it, and this will allow us to solo the guitar and hear nothing else. Now, another note to that is if I hit solo to the guitar, and then I solo the vocal, well now these two are soloed and I'm hearing them both. So really it's not doing much. So let's take that away. The next thing, mute. This is a very good and handy way to mute anything that you have. Let's say you have 100 tracks in your session and there's a shaker, there's a shaker that you just don't want, you don't want to hear it anymore, or there's a certain part of the song that you just don't want to hear, you can mute it. This will allow you to stop audio completely from that track or whatever is in that track from hitting the audio bus. So let's take a look at these parameters in the mix window. I'm going to hit Apple plus on the keyboard. This will allow me to switch back and forth between the edit and mix window. I can do that as well under the window menu, mix. Window menu again to get back to the edit window. So let's hit the quick key Apple plus. We are now in the edit window. So take a look here. As you can see, I'm just showing tracks and nothing else. There's no blank page for me to edit on. So let's go over our mix window and our 2 tracks. So we've noticed that we have record here, input only, solo, and mute. Nothing's changed. But now here I'm showing a few other parameters. What am I looking at? Well, the top part of it, this dark gray part, shows inserts. So much like the analog domain, we can insert tracks physically in the track itself and affect the overall audio output. So let's take a look at that. We have 5 inserts I can see here. As they come up, it says insert selector A, and this will be B, C, D, and E. So for now, we'll just use A, and we'll insert maybe a compressor, because we want this guitar to just be big and just create a big sound in our record. So let's go to our plugin window. In this case, we're using HD, so we'll go to TDM plugin, and we'll hit Dynamics, and we'll use the Bomb Factory BF76. Great compressor. As you can see, it pops up, and we show different parameters. And like I said, this will affect your overall output. Now, if I wanted to create another insert, I can as well. Let's say I wanted to EQ the overall track. I can as well, so I'll just do TDM plugin, EQ, 7-band. Now some people like to have the compressor after the EQ or the EQ after the compressor. Very simple change. Just go to the drop down menu and physically drop it down. So now your 7-band EQ is before the compressor. Very simple change. If I wanted to go back, select, drag, and let go onto selector A. So there's that. Now let's cover the sends. Now on a guitar track, let's say I want to send that audio to a separate reverb track, which will allow me to mix in the wet and the dry signal. Let's say maybe the verse I want to have less reverb, but then the chorus I want the guitar to be big and open up and have a lot more reverb. I can do that. Let's do that now. On the sends, we'll select send, and this theory will go to a bus. Now a bus is physically, think of it as a bus taking the kids to school. It's just a route. It's somewhere where audio can go. It's physically transporting signal from one end to another. So bus, we'll use bus 1, since we only have a mono track. There's bus 1. This window pops up. This fader itself says how much of this signal, this guitar track right here, how much of that signal is going to my bus. Now if I have this fader all the way down, what happens? No signal is going to the bus. But if I bring it up slowly but surely, I'm now getting signal more to the bus. I can overload the bus as well. Now I'm at plus 12. I may not want to do that. So for now, we'll hit the option key, select the fader, and just go to unity. That was the option key. I just hold the option key and select the fader. I'll do it again. Bring the fader down, hold the option key, select it, and now I'm at unity. So the next step, where is this signal going to go to? Now what we use in this world is an aux track. Let's create a new track. Track, new. All right, so now this time we're not going to create an audio track. This time we're going to create an auxiliary track. We'll create one auxiliary. We'll make it mono. And we'll change the audio track to aux input. Create. All right, now I can see here, guitar 1, vocal, and aux 1. Well, let's change the name of this aux 1 to a reverb. So I double click on it, hit name track, select it, and just label it reverb. And we'll hit OK using the return button. All right, so now this track labels reverb. But right now it's saying I don't have an input. It says no input. I'm not receiving any signal. So what I need to do is drag signal from the bus to this track itself. Very simple. Select input, select the bus. Now I wouldn't select bus 15 because there's no signal on bus 15. I would select bus 1, right? Because if we look, bus 1 is occupied by our guitar track. So let's do that. We'll select bus 1. I have now completed